take your own Bible then and turn to John 15. Jesus has been meeting with his disciples in the last day, basically, before he is going to hang on the cross. And so he's on his deathbed, so to speak. He's not sick on his deathbed. He just knows he's going to die, and he knows it's going to happen in the next day, that everything's going to start to go down. So he's with his disciples, and he wants to share with them things that he finds really important. In John 13, we saw that he washed their feet. And when he washed their feet, do you remember what the purpose of that was for? What was it? Yeah, he wants to show the full extent of his love. In the last moments of his life, before the cross, he wants his disciples to know the full extent of his love, and so what he does is he bows down, takes the place of a servant, and washes their feet. And then we find coming out of that of the people that he washed feet of, there are two people in particular that Jesus draws our attention to. One is a guy named Judas. And the thing about it is, Jesus washes Judas's feet. And then after that says, hey, by the way, this guy's going to betray me. And so what's important about that is God wants to show the full extent of his love, even to one he knows will betray him. And someone who will choose, say this, that 30 pieces of silver is more important than Jesus to me. That's what he did. And Jesus wanted to show the full extent of his love to him, so he washed his feet. And he also washed the feet of Peter. And Peter, he basically tells him this, hey, you're gonna deny you even know me. And that's going to happen tomorrow, by the way. And so here's the deal. He washed the feet to show the full extent of his love to one he knew would choose safety over acknowledging that he knew him. He's just showing the full extent of his love. It then tells him, by the way, he makes it even more clear, like, hey, I'm getting ready to leave, and I won't be here, but don't let your hearts be troubled. He talked about what it looked like to not have your heart be troubled, and there's a whole section there in chapter 14 about that. In chapter 15, he changes locations, but he continues to have this deathbed teaching. And so with it, we're going to pick up in John 15 and see what it is that he wants us to hold on to and what he wanted his disciples to hold on to, because these are the things that are going to drive the book of Acts. We actually started about a year ago in the book of Acts and wanted to see how does the church operate in power. It operates in power because the disciples held on to and learned the things in chapter 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Those chapters of John drive home how they begin to operate in power. And John 15 gives us another piece of that. To start, I'm actually going to start in the very last verse of chapter 14. So they've been in the upper room. They've had the Last Supper. He's teaching them. He's washed their feet. And then he says this just before 15:1, come now, let us leave. That verse is, that section there is really important because we've got to understand that they're going to change locations. They're not changing the teaching. The teaching is going to continue, but he's just going to change where he's doing it. No longer is it going to be an upper room. It doesn't say where he goes, but John 15 tells us where he goes. The other thing is we can figure this out by looking at other Gospels. Where he goes is he goes to a Mount of Olives, and he goes to a grape vineyard. And he's in this place. It's also the place where Jesus and other Gospel accounts will be where he goes and prays the Father, can you take this cup from me? In that place, that's actually where he is right now, and John records what he taught there. And here's what he says. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, so be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I'm the vine, and you are the branches. If a man remains in me, and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you obey my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have obeyed in my Father's commands, and remain in his love. I have told you this, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. You're my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you to go and bear fruit, fruit that will last. Then the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. This is my command. Love each other. John 15 is one of the more famous sections of John. I'm the vine, you're the branches. We want to make sure they actually know what it means, though. Sometimes these passages like that, we miss some things. And partly why is we miss that verse I try to draw attention to. Come, let us leave. Come, let us leave. And so he takes his disciples, 11 of them, because Judas is already gone, 11 of them, and they go somewhere. And they find themselves in the Mount of Olives. In the Mount of Olives, Jesus begins to teach them a parable. And he teaches them a parable in the presence of grapes. He teaches them a parable in the presence of a vineyard. And what he wants them to do is he wants them to be looking at this vineyard to understand what he wants to tell them. He's going to say this: if you want to have power in your life, if you want to bear fruit in your life, if you want to see my presence manifest itself through you, then watch these grapes, because you got to understand what these grapes are saying to us. And you have to live like this vineyard, because if you do, you will bear much fruit. And I've appointed you to bear much fruit. But if you don't live like this vineyard, there won't be any fruit. And so he's trying to give them a visual picture, give them an understanding about something that makes sense to them. And so we're going to do two things. We're going to look at their parable the way they would have seen it and try to understand what it means. But I don't know about you. Anybody in here a vine dresser, or anybody in here work with grapes? You do? You used to. So awesome. So when I get some stuff wrong, correct me. All right? But then we're also going to do a modern parable where I'll take some stuff that I think applies to how we live and things that make some sense to us. We're going to do a little bit of both. But Jesus finds himself in a vineyard. They're looking at this vineyard and these vines, and he's going to say some things to them. This is what he says: I'm the vine, and you, and my Father's the gardener. He cuts every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes to be even more fruitful. You're already clean because of my word I've spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. And so he's going to say this: I'm the vine, and you are the branches coming off that vine. And the Father, he's the gardener, or the vine dresser, depending on your translation. And so there's three people working here in this picture. It's Jesus, it's the Father, and it's us. In that vineyard, you got that vine coming up, you've got branches that come off it, and the branches are the parts that carry the fruit. And the vine is what gives the sustenance to the branch. But there's also a gardener that comes in and makes sure that the vine is doing what it's supposed to do. If a vine isn't tended, it won't produce what it's supposed to produce. If there's not someone that's an expert on the outside to come in and to know what is required to make it fruitful, it won't be fruitful. And so there's something about that little verse there that's really important I want us to hold on to. It says the Father is the gardener, or the Father is the vine dresser. What this does for us, and it's something that should be a little bit liberating, a little bit freeing, is it actually puts the onus on God the Father and not on us to bear fruit. We're going to look at this passage in its entirety to explain a little bit more, but it puts the onus on the Father, the gardener, not on the branch. All the branch has to do is remain. As long as the branch remains in the vine, it will produce fruit. It's natural. It will just automatically happen as long as the vine dresser comes in and does what he's supposed to do. So here's the other thing I want to tell you. You were and you are destined to bear fruit. You are someone that is supposed to bear fruit. That's not on you. It's just a natural thing. If you're connected to Jesus, you will bear fruit. Now here's what happens is there's a verse in here that gets a little scary, and this is where I think we get off a little bit. And Isabel can maybe correct me if my understanding is a little fuzzy. But here's what it says. Every branch that does not bear fruit, he prunes so even more fruitful. Even before the verse 2, he says, he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. Okay, so Isabel, can I ask you a question? All right. Would you ever cut a branch off that wasn't bearing fruit? Okay, you saw your granddad do it. Okay. Not all the time. Right? Did you hear that part? It looks like it's dying, but I know exactly what to do. So in the Greek here, and you won't know this, but I'm gonna give you a quick little Greek lesson. I don't really like doing Greek lessons because it's really not that important usually, but in here it's really important. The Greek word is airo. And the Greek word allows for two different translations. And I'm going to tell you that I believe the NIV, the New King James, and all these other translations, all the translations, I believe they got it wrong. And the reason I think they got it wrong is because they translated the word correctly, but are not thinking about what a vine dresser does. And that's okay because they're Greek scholars, they're not vine dressers, so you wouldn't know it. But the word airo can be translated two different ways. One is to lift up, and the other is to cut off. It's your judgment call. You have to make a judgment about which it is. Is it to cut off or is it to raise up? Now, because we know that Jesus has left the upper room and Jesus is in the presence of a vineyard and he's looking at grapes, in all that sense, you have to look at the word airo through the lens of a vine dresser. And what a vine dresser will see is, it looks like it's dead, but it isn't. I have to do something to it. A branch that is not bearing fruit, most often it has fallen down, it has gotten dirt on it and dust on it, and it's hanging low. And in that place, it cannot produce fruit. Do you know what the vine dresser does? He lifts it up, cleans it off, and puts it back where it's supposed to be. He lifts it up. And once he does, guess what? It begins to produce fruit again. So one thing that's saying here is that Jesus, I'm the vine, and he is the vine dresser, and you're the branch. You're supposed to bear fruit. But if you're not bearing fruit, what's happened is you've kind of fallen off a little bit. You might even look dead a little bit. And you might have a whole bunch of dirt on you. But the vine dresser will come and he will clean you off. And he will then tie you back up and tie you back in, and you will begin to bear fruit again. Because as Isabel was saying is, it looks dead, but it really isn't. I know what to do. Okay, so here's the deal. Now think about that in our own lives. Have you ever been in a place, and maybe you're in that place now, I don't know, but ever in that place where you feel like, man, I feel like I'm kind of dead. I feel like I just don't see any fruit. I feel like I'm kind of like just not really doing much of anything. And then what we think we have to do in that place is, I got to go do more. I gotta make it out of this. I gotta figure this out. It's on me. No, it's not. You are not the vine dresser. He is. And what it means, I'll get you in a second. Where he is he's the vine dresser. So he sees me and you in that place. He says, you know what? You got a little bit of dirt on you. You know what? You've been hanging low. You've been hanging down some places you shouldn't be. But I'm going to come alongside you, and I'm going to lift you up, and I'm going to tie you back in. And you will bear fruit again because you were destined to bear fruit. That's what you're destined to do. Now, the other thing about vines is he says, not only this thing about cut off, which we just changed to lift up, because I think that's actually the correct translation. Nothing against those Greek scholars who know way more than I do. But the other side of it is he says he prunes. Did you see that? He prunes. So when I've done some research on vine dressers and what happens, and so you've got the branches that fall low, but then you have other branches that have tons of leaves on them. And so I was reading some stuff on vine dressers, and this guy had bought a house, and he was all excited about this fence that he had in his property, because there was a shared fence, and on that shared fence was this huge vine, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is great. We bought this house, and we're going to have the biggest grapes, and there's going to be tons of grapes, and it'll be awesome. He's so excited about this. And as it's starting to get a little bit later in the season and stuff like that, he's really, really excited about what can happen. And then he looks outside, and he sees his neighbor out there with shears. And the biggest shears he's ever seen, he's going, and he's just cutting away. And he's like, what's happening? I thought we shared. I thought it was like 50-50 mine. You know, like, don't you have to talk to me before you just start hacking away at it? And so he goes over to his neighbor and saying, hey, what are you doing? I was, no offense, but looking forward to some grapes this year. And the guy looks at me and goes, you never grown a grape, have you? He's like, no. He goes, oh, don't worry. What I'm doing is going to cause you to have more grapes. I'm not doing what you think I'm doing. I'm pruning it. And if this vine and this branch coming off the vine has too many leaves on it, do you know what it'll do? Is it looks alive, but it won't bear much fruit. The leaves are going to get in the way, and it won't be able to bear as much as I want it to. It will bear fruit, but not much fruit. So what the vine dresser does is he prunes. He cuts away things when it looks like it's vibrant. He cuts certain things away to make it even more vibrant. So, you know what? Sometimes we find ourselves in that place in life where the branch is kind of hanging low and it's like we feel like we're done, and he's going to pull you back up. Others of us will feel like, hey, I'm feeling vibrant, and then all of a sudden, I feel like I'm walking well with the Lord, I feel like everything is going well, and all of a sudden, a whole bunch of stuff and junk starts happening in my life. And then we begin to assume that this stuff happening in our life is bad, and we must say, did I do something wrong? Did I screw up? I mean, I thought I was walking well. Why is Jesus giving me this? I thought that if I was walking well with God, that I should get these good things. Why am I getting these bad things? I want to tell you that every branch that bears fruit gets pruned. I didn't say it was fun. It's pruned. He will cut things away. He will take things out. And he will do it for a season. And he might make it so a branch that once looked vibrant all of a sudden doesn't look vibrant at all. And it will then turn it into one of the most vibrant things possible because it's meant to bear more fruit. And so some of us will hang low and be built up. And some of us will look really fruitful and then be pruned. But you have to watch out for this because I think lots of people, and any one of us can fall into this category, where you're getting pruned and all of a sudden you start to think that the gardener is no good. And we start to blame God for these different things that are happening in our lives. We blame him for the hardships. We blame him for the troubles. We blame him for all the things that disappoint us. And he's like, what are you complaining about? You don't understand. I'm pruning you. I love you. And this is better for you. And I'm going to get more fruit out of you doing this. And I'm going to take some things in you think are valuable, some things in you that you think are vibrant. But really, they're sucking life out of the vine. I'm just going to cut that off. I'm going to prune you. So some of us may be walking very well with Jesus and experiencing hard things. The perspective then is, I know you're good. I know this is good for me. I don't know how, but I'll bear more fruit through this. Do you see again how the onus is on the Father? The vine dresser, or the gardener, depending on your translation. The gardener is the one who makes it all go. The only thing the branch has to do is remain. It's remain. Here's another reason why I don't think it's translated right when it says cuts off, because the goal of this is to remain. So if you're not remaining, he is going to come and bring you into a place to remain better. That's the whole goal. He wants us to remain. Verse 3 says this, you are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Now what he's telling his disciples here is, look, I've spoken something to you, and because of that, you're already clean. So maybe the disciples are starting to go, hey, am I the branch hanging low? It's like, no, you're already clean. You're already clean because of the word I've spoken to you. What's the word he's spoken to them? We traced this a few weeks ago, and some of the things that he says is, the work of God is this, to believe in the one he sent. Because of that, you're clean. He says to Nicodemus, you just need to be born again. Place your faith in me, and you'll be born again. You'll be clean. He says that there's no shame, guilt, or condemnation from him. You'll be clean. So he's telling us disciples, you're already clean. So don't try and make yourselves clean. You're already clean. And he then goes on and says, remain in me, and I'll remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself, but must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. He just wants you and me to bear fruit. Okay, so that's their parable. We're going to push pause on their parable, and we're going to do on with ours, which you don't know yet. But it's one that I think will make some sense to you. He's saying is to remain. What does it mean to remain? It means abide. Okay, great. What does that mean? Stay, right? It needs to stay, to continue, to remain, to stay and continue. Okay. I'm going to tell you, y'all know what this is, right? I don't have to explain this, right? Cell phone, right? I'm going to say that most people, I think a lot of Christians, we live our lives like cell phones. And we're not supposed to. And the thing about a cell phone is this, is that, pull out your cell phone real quick. And go ahead and get it so you can see the screen. And look at your cell phone, and depending on your phone, but probably in the top right corner somewhere, you got a battery. You got a battery life. How's your battery doing? You're at 65, I'm at 59. Anybody lower than that? Yeah? It's Someone's at 14. Uh-oh. Anybody at like 90? Oh, look at you all. Look at you all. So here's the deal. You know what happened is, some people plugged their phone in more recently than others. You 90% people, you plugged in most recently. You 14% people have been away from the plug for a while. And you 59% people, that's me. I'm still 59, that's good. So I'm halfway, right? And that Siri is bringing some stuff up. Okay, so here's the deal. What happens is this. We live our lives this way. This is a charger. We plug ourselves in. We spend some time with Jesus. In lots of Christian communities, we say, have a quiet time. Spend some time with Jesus. We plug ourselves in. When we plug ourselves in, it might be 15 minutes, might be a half hour, might be an hour. Hey, if it's really good, we just soaked in it. And we were there for a few hours, we just kind of soaked in it. It could have been through worship, could have been through prayer, could have been through interacting with some people. And we soaked in it. We got a good charge. Now, for me, this really doesn't work at all, because if I just eject right now, I stay at 59. So I still have to stay for a little bit. But what happens is we stay for a while, and then this is what we do. We unplug, and we walk around thinking we're good. And then we walk around until we start to feel like, hey, I need to get some more of that charge. And our life is like this. Plug in, plug out. Plug in, plug out. Plug in, plug out. If I keep doing that, I'm never going to get to 100% anyway. And even if I am at 100%, once I unplug, I'm on my way down already. I don't want to feel good about my spiritual life being, I'm going down already. So that's one way. But see, what God's saying here is we want to remain. So, Ann, if you don't mind, could you turn that light switch off for us real quick? So, I know technology has changed a little bit. We got cell phones. This is a little bit more old school technology. We got a lamp. So in order to make this lamp work, it's got to be plugged in. It's the only way it works. And what I think God's really trying to tell us is, you're not a cell phone, you're more like a lamp. And you think you're like a cell phone, but you're really not. You're really this lamp. So while you think you're walking around with a charge, while you think you're walking around with something, reality is you can do nothing, you are nothing, you got nothing, because you're not really plugged in. So what lots of people do is they unplug thinking they're a cell phone, but they're actually walking around like this. Hey, you want some light? I got some light right here. You're like, no, you got nothing. You're walking around like this. Like, I feel really good about my Christian life. I feel really good about what God's doing in my life. I feel really good. And then what we think is that the things that we do are really dependent upon us. That's what we think. Now, the reality is, you got to be plugged in. You know what's a little bit hard about this? You can't go very far. If you're plugged in, you can't get away. If you're plugged in, you're always kind of connected. And this is more what Jesus wants us to live our lives like. Always connected. Because he never wants us to get far from him. He always wants us to feel him. To always know that he's with us. To always know that we're connected. To always to feel that tether. To feel like he's the one driving it. To feel like he's the one that's creating the light. To feel like he's the one who's doing the work. And all we're really doing is we're walking around with him and saying, hey, where do you want this to go? We're supposed to be the lamp. But a lot of times we live like a cell phone. We think we can plug in and unplug and walk around and do something. We can't. What Jesus says is, remain. Remain in me. See, apart from me, you can do nothing. But if you remain in me, you'll bear much fruit. And if you want to turn that light back on for us. Let's keep going. So we'll end up back in our vineyard analogy, but I wanted us to get a more practical one for us. Verse 5, I'm the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he'll bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given you. So what has he just said here? He's saying, like, again, I'm the vine, you're the branches. You're going to bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. But if anyone does not remain in me, he's like a branch that is thrown away and withers. See, what he's saying is you got to remain. If you don't remain, you're going to be like something. It's important here, it's a comparison. It's an analogy. It doesn't say you are something. You see, that word like is pretty important. If you don't remain in me, you're like something. What are you like? You're like a branch that's completely fallen off. And a branch that's completely fallen off, what does it do? It withers. Because it has nothing to keep it alive. It withers and it dies. And all it's good for is kindling. Now the important word here is like. It doesn't say it is. It doesn't say if you don't remain in me, you are. It says it's like. And so he's saying is this, if you don't remain in me, here's what you're going to be like. You're going to be like this branch that's withering, that's dying. And others will look at it and say, it's dead. It's worth picking up and just throwing in the fire because that's all it's good for at this point. It's kindling. And so the analogy is it's like. It doesn't say you are. And so it's saying remain in me so you don't look like this. Because you want to be alive. That's where all the life is. It's not saying you are. It's not saying this is what's going to happen to you. It's not saying you're going to be thrown in the fire. It's saying, hey, you look like this branch and you shouldn't look like this branch. Why? Because you were made to bear fruit. So remain in me. And if you say in a place like, I'm not remaining, what he's saying is, well, then go plug back in and get back in that branch and remain. It's not a fatalistic statement, though sometimes it's read that way because we miss the word like. It is a statement saying, if you have unplugged, then go plug back in and remain, and you will bear much fruit. Does that make sense? Verse 9. Actually, we'll go back to verse 7. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Let's start there. Why is it that you and I bear fruit? Based on that verse. Why do you and I bear fruit? What was that? Because we remain, yes. Okay, we follow and believe, yes. There's a purpose, though. Glorify the Father. Right? To glorify the gardener. So here's what he's really saying is, if you show up to a vineyard and you see a lush vineyard with tons of grapes, what are you going to praise? The grapes or the gardener? The gardener. What is this saying is, when you bear much fruit, does someone go, oh my gosh, Grace is amazing. You are, but is that what they're saying? No, actually what they should be doing is saying, her God is unbelievable. Look what he has done with her. Our God's amazing. Look what God's done with me. Like, I'm telling you, if God wasn't in my life, you wouldn't like me. When I met Jesus, he transformed my life. When you met Jesus, he transformed your life. When Jesus comes in, he begins to produce fruit in our lives. When he begins to produce fruit in our lives, he changes from the inside out to make us look more and more like him. This starts to give us an idea of what fruit looks like, because he says we bear much fruit. So the question that Kelsey has and Chris has is like, well, what does it look like? That's important. But we also really want to know what the fruit is. Because we start to know what the fruit is, we actually begin to start, what does this look like? We can identify fruit in a couple different ways. One is we can look at Scripture, and Scripture tells us this, the fruit of the Spirit is something. So the Bible tells us very directly what fruit is. What is fruit? It is a person living out in this way. The fruit of the Spirit coming through a person is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. That's fruit. You are appointed to bear much fruit. You and I are appointed to bear patience. You and I are appointed to bear gentleness. You and I were appointed to bear love. You and I were appointed to bear self-control. You and I were appointed to bear joy. This is the fruit. This is what we should see. And oftentimes we look at Christians and it's like, I'm like, dude, you got to plug in because you're dragging. And if you're really dragging, that's okay. The gardener will come in and say, hey, I got to pull you back up. But the reality is that there should be fruit here. And this fruit, in some instances, in some regards, is what does it look like coming out of our lives? Do we see these things? If you remain in Jesus, you will see characteristics start to come out of you can't make happen in your own life. You may have tried for years. But by being connected to the Lord, it will begin to come out because the fruit of the Spirit, which means the work of the Spirit, is this in our lives. The work of the gardener the Father in our lives is that we bear much fruit. Now, the other way of looking at fruit is this. In Scripture, we see this. There's a parable of the sower. In the parable of the sower, it says that the sower scatters seed, and some falls on different types of soil. I'm going to skip ahead and just go, there's seed that falls on good soil. When seed falls on good soil, and in that parable, what it means is our heart being good soil. When we're good soil, that seed comes in, and it does something. What does it do? It comes in, it grows up a crop that produces fruit of 100-fold. In the parable of the sower, it's talking about it in the idea of evangelism. It'll produce more and more and more. So some aspects of fruit is evangelism, and some aspects of fruit is the characteristics in our lives. These are the two main ways the Bible talks about fruit in our lives. So it says, well, you're appointed to bear much fruit. You're appointed to reproduce. You're appointed to bring people into the kingdom. You're appointed to bear much fruit. You're appointed to be a co-laborer with Christ, the Bible says. You're appointed to be a priest. It's the priesthood of all believers. You're appointed to bring people who are far from God and bring them near to God. You're appointed. And you're appointed to bear fruit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. These are things that should be coming out. Now, if they're not coming out, then what we want to do is say, hey, maybe I need to get plugged back in, or I need to remain. What does that look like? How does that happen? So the way it begins to happen is to begin to put into practice some, I hate this word, so I don't really want to use it. I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it, you're just going to know I hate it. Discipline. We got to put some disciplines in our lives. I don't like the word discipline because sometimes it turns into works. And I don't want you to get the idea it's works, because that's not what does it. Works doesn't do it. But I shared a few weeks ago some college students, George, Alex, myself, and Marcus, and some others. We're on a journey to discover what does it look like to have a more connection with the Lord. What does it look like to have this prayer life that is kind of what the Bible talks about, where it says they were praying all the time, praying without ceasing. What does that look like? And how would I begin to have that? If you begin to have a prayer life, you'll actually have this remaining thing going on. If you do not have a prayer life, you will not have this remaining thing going on. If you do not have a prayer life, what will happen is this. You'll be like this. This is what happens to a person who doesn't have a prayer life. They might read their Bible, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a wonderful thing. Please read your Bible. Plug in. I read my Bible. I got some things from Jesus. I got all this stuff. I'll unplug now because what I needed was my Bible, and I walk away. If you have a prayer life, you can read your Bible, and then you can leave your Bible, and you can still be connected to Jesus all day long because you keep praying. That's what it looks like. In the most simplest terms is, if you don't have this remaining thing happening in your life, then what we need to develop is a prayer life. Because the prayer life is a connected life. The prayer life is the life that begins to connect with the Spirit of God, to hear what the Spirit of God is trying to say from the Father, and keeps us connected to Him, so we're always kind of checking in. How am I connected to my wife when I'm not around? I call her. I check in with her. We're constantly I'm with college students. We're having a small group on Friday, and all of a sudden I get a phone call, and if it's my wife, I'm answering it. So I answer it. And she's like, hey, where are you? And I'm like, I'm with college students. And she's like, okay, but where are you? And I'm like, oh, we're on campus. We're in a dorm. She's like, okay, because there's like a tornado warning. I just want to make sure you know that, and make sure you stay safe. Like we're staying connected. We're even though we're apart, we're always talking to each other. Like prayer life is what does it. In order to develop a prayer life, what I'm trying to do is to break down certain things so we can develop a prayer life that is connected all the time. So we're taking some things that are simple and saying, hey, we're going to apply this. And so I'm going to give you the exact same charge that I gave a few weeks ago. Here's where we started. Proverbs 3:5-6. Doesn't seem like it's a prayer passage, but it is. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, lean not in your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. If you want to have a connected life that is remaining, it means you are praying all the time saying, hey, God, I need your help right here. And you know what you're asking for? Is you're asking for help when you actually think you know what you're doing. Lean not on your own understanding. You think you know. I got this. I studied. I got it. I've been here before. I've seen this before. I've got experience. I got this. I've got other people around me who can help me. We've got it. No, you don't. You think you do. But what happens is if you have a connected life, if you have a prayer life, you recognize this verse says, lean not in your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge God, and saying, hey, I feel like I got this, but I'm going to acknowledge you right now. What do? I acknowledge you right now. Will you make my path straight? I acknowledge you right now. Even though I feel like I'm walking through this and I know how to make it happen, will you be the one who's guiding me and directing me through it? If you continue to develop that, and if you take that verse to heart and throw that prayer up all the time, you're beginning to develop a prayer life that is connected all the time. Because you will find out that in every aspect of life, you need him. You need him. You're a wonderful real estate agent. You know exactly how to sell a home. You've sold, I don't know how many, a ton. But don't lean on your understanding. You can't. You have to keep going and saying, hey, how do I sell this one? What does this client need? What pictures do we need? Ask him all the questions that you would normally just run through and say, hey, what do I need to do? And if you do, he will make your path straight. And when you do that, all of a sudden he begins to drop things in your mind. You may not even realize he dropped it in your mind. It may be also that you lean not in your understanding, but you throw up this prayer, and then hours later, you get this idea. And you're like, oh, I'm glad I thought of that. No, the Lord gave it to you. It may be that someone comes alongside you and gives you some advice that you didn't know was coming. And the whole reason it came is because you said, hey, I'm leaning on you and I'm acknowledging you. You're the all-wise God who knows everything, who orders my steps, and who is before me. Lead me the right way. You're a young life leader going on campus. What students do you connect with? And Jillian, you're a caretaker. What do they need? They can't even tell you. You look at certain signs and, I think this cry means that, and I think that cry means this, and I think that, but you got to lean on the Lord. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what your training is. You and I have to lean on the Lord. So I want to make sure you do this. So I'm going to ask you to pull your cell phone out. We do alarm clock prayer in here. We're going to do alarm clock. Lean not in your own understanding. I'm going to ask you to put it in your phone and ask you to go off on your phone at 9, 12, 3, 6, and 9. It goes off 4 times a day. With it saying, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. If you do that, what will happen is you'll be reminded throughout the day, oh yeah, I need to be checking in. I need to be talking to him. The purpose of this is so that eventually that which is practiced becomes natural. That which is an exercise becomes a part of who we are. You've been coaching tennis for how many years? Okay, so we won't do that, right? But a long time. And you get to that place sometimes where you feel like, I know what I'm doing. And you gotta what does this player need? What that all these different things. We gotta check in. If we take this and we start to do it 4 times a day, just have that reminder, eventually become a habit, and eventually become part of who we are, and eventually throughout your day, you're like, hey, what do I do here? Hey, what do I do there? It's really one of the ways that I stay connected to the Lord. It's what I do. God, what do I do here? What do I say here? How do I respond to this? I'm dumbfounded by that. I think I got this one. What do I, I'm just talking to him all the time. What I'm trying to do is to give you an exercise to get you to the same place. Because if you're in that place, you will be abiding in him or remaining in him, and you will bear much fruit. Why? Because you'll be doing exactly what Jesus did. Jesus only did what he saw his Father doing. Translation, Jesus remained in his vine, which was the Father. For him, the vine was the Father. He remained. He didn't do anything on his own. He was constantly saying, Father, what do we do here? Father, what do I say here? Father, do we heal this person? Father, we do that. He was always doing that. It says he only did what he saw his Father doing. He was only checking in and being with the Father, and they were one, and in that he bore much fruit. Remember in John 14 it says this to his disciples, I tell you, you will do even greater things than these. He tells his disciples, you'll do even greater things than I did. Remember that? Oftentimes, I think that verse is overplayed, and people are like, oh, well, you're going to do these great things. It's not the great things. It's that everything that Jesus did, the Father told him to do. You'll do even greater things than these because the Father's going to do even greater things than these. And so when the Father tells you to do something, you'll do it in his power. And as you do it in his power, then all these things will happen. Why is he telling his disciples, you'll do even greater things than these? Because you're remaining. You're just doing what I'm doing. Everything I do is from him. Everything you do is going to be from me and him too. Remain in me. And I'll remain in you. And the other thing it says about remaining, it gives a little bit about the how. It says, remain in my love. This is my command. If you obey my command, you'll be loving me and you'll remain in me. But this is my command, that you love. That you love. Now here's the thing. It sounds great until you really think about how hard that really is. He says, love as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, John 15 says. But he lays down his life for his brothers. So if you want to remain in me and stuff like this, you're going to bear some fruit. And bearing fruit will cause you to love more, but it really, by loving more, you actually remain in me. Because what he's saying is, I want you to love each other just the way I did, and I laid down my life for you. I'm about to. I'm going to take that which is most precious to me, and I'm going to lay it down for your benefit. That's what I'm going to do. And he's inviting his disciples to do the exact same thing. Now think about this. Who are the disciples? In there is a guy named Matthew. Matthew is a tax collector. In there is a fisherman who really doesn't really interact too much with tax collectors, but except for paying taxes. They don't really like each other. But Jesus has chosen to put those two together as his group of disciples. He put them together. And Jesus also put other people together. And he put together a ragtag group of people who wouldn't interact and wouldn't normally enjoy being around each other. And he made them disciples. And he made them disciples together. And he's telling them, you got to love each other in the same way I've loved you. You know what? What God's telling us is we need to love each other in the same way that Jesus loves us. And it's not easy to do that. You can pick your friends. You never pick your family. You can choose friends because you choose the people you want to be around, the people that make you feel better, the people that you enjoy. Those are the people you choose. Family? I think we're not going to disclose anything about any families, but honestly, are these the people you would choose? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. You don't choose your family. And what Jesus is saying, in the family of God, you didn't choose the people around you. I chose them. And I put together some people that you might not even rub shoulders with that well. Love them. And if you do, you'll bear fruit from me. That's what my fruit looks like. But at the same time, when I'm telling you to love that guy over there, guess what? You're going to realize I can't do that. And so you'll connect back in and say, Jesus, help me to love like you do, because I can't do this on my own. Once we're humble and in that place of saying, I can't do this, now you can remain. And now this is what it looks like. Two ways it looks like. It's a prayer life and it's a humble life. I can't do it. Those two things, we might talk about it more later, but those two things are the beginnings of what it looks like. Yeah. About love. Love one another. 1 John. Cool. Why don't we end with that? I'll invite you to stand and we'll pray. Just bow your heads with me. God, we just want to thank you that you are in our lives. And we ask you to help us to remain in you. Help us to abide in you. Some of us maybe haven't abided ever in our lives, and you don't even know that you can have a relationship with God like that. Some people may feel like, I'm not good enough to have a relationship with God. And you may have reasons why you think God might not want you. God says this, I love you so much, I'll send my one and only Son, Jesus, to die on the cross for you, that whoever believes in me will have eternal life. The way to relationship with God is not to get everything right. The way to relationship with God is not to do good things. The way to have a relationship with God is to admit that you have nothing before him and that you need him. So God's inviting every one of us to say, hey God, I need you. And God's saying, I sent my Son to die to take your place, and he rose from the death, conquering sin for you. If you place your faith in him, you'll have life and relationship. You'll plug in. If you want to plug in, we like to say it around here, it's as simple as ABC. Simple as A, admit, God, I'm a sinner and I need you. It's as simple as B, believe. God, I believe you died on the cross for me. It's as simple as C, commit, saying, I want you in my life. I'm following you. I'm plugging in. Just say something like that to the Lord. Say, God, I admit, I believe, I commit. And God will come in, you'll plug in, and you'll begin a life of remaining. For those who've already done that, and if you just did that, may God cause you to sense the connection you have with Him. May it be even more tangible than before. May He produce fruit in us. For those of us who are in pruning seasons, would He give us the strength to endure? Would He give us the eyes to see that it's good? Would He give us the trust to believe that He's a good gardener that knows what He's doing? And God, we just trust you. We ask you to bear more fruit through us. For those of us who are hanging a little low, God, we just ask you to pick us up. We ask that you clean us off. We ask that you tie us back in, prop us up, and bear fruit through us. May the Lord bear fruit through each one of us more and more. May there be love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control in greater quantities in our lives. And may He bear fruit through us, bring others into His presence. God, we lift up the fair to you. We thank you we get to go. We thank you we get to go share you, and people get to experience you, not hear about you, but experience you. And we pray you would come with power through us, and that many at the fair would experience your power and your presence, your love, your care, your concern, your help, and your love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you all. Enjoy one another's company.